Bienvenidos. Today we're going to talk about the verb ser in Spanish. Verbs are words in sentences that convey action. So words like sleep, eat, talk, walk, run, those are all verbs. And in English, verbs have different forms. They have forms depending on who's actually doing the action. And when we change the verb's form to match with the person who's doing the action or the object who's doing the action, then we call that conjugating a verb. Okay? To conjugate a verb means to change its form to agree with the item or people who are actually doing the action. So in English, we have a verb to exist, which is to be, okay? To be. And this form, right here, to be, is called the infinitive form. And what that form means is that there is nobody doing the action, okay? There's no subject that's actually existing here. It's just to be. That's called the infinitive form. And then when we conjugate the verb to be, according to different subjects doing the action, it changes it. It doesn't say to be anymore. When I am doing the action, the verb changes to am. Okay? So that's the I form. The I form is am. When we, they, or you are doing the action, the form becomes are. When he, she, or it is doing the action, the form of to be is. So as you can see, none of these actually look like the original form, the infinitive form, but they all mean to be, okay? It just depends on the subject that's actually doing the action. And fortunately for us, Spanish is structured very similarly. Verbs are action words, and we have subjects that do the action, and the verb changes form according to who's doing the action. The verb ser in Spanish is also representing a different way of thinking, because in Spanish there are several different ways of being, if you will. Okay? There are different ways of being. Okay? And so ser is used to express some of those ways of being. And the ways of being that ser is used to express in Spanish are identity. Okay? Something like, I am a teacher. You are a student. He is my friend. Okay? She is my sister. Those are all forms of identity. Things like country of origin. I am from Ohio. She is from Mexico. Profession and possession. It is my book. Okay? It's Javier's book. Those are all forms of falling in this category of identity, and that's one use of ser in Spanish. And another use of ser in Spanish is to talk about time, the existence of time. Time on a clock, it is 5 o'clock, it's 3 o'clock, or the time of something, some event. What time is the party, or when is the party? The party is Monday. Okay. It can also be used to talk about the location of an event. Where is the football game? It is in the football stadium. Okay. Those are all ways that the verb ser would be used in Spanish. There are other verbs that mean to be in Spanish, and we're not going to talk about those in this video. We're sticking with the verb ser. So what I want to show you now is how to conjugate the verb ser according to whoever is doing the action. In another video, we talked about subject pronouns, and now you're going to see those subject pronouns used to conjugate the verb ser according to whatever subject is existing or is being. Okay? Okay, this is the verb ser in Spanish. The verb ser means to be, and this is the infinitive form. This form is not conjugated with any subject. There is nothing doing action here. There's nothing existing. It's just to be. When we conjugate ser according to I, yo, the yo form is yo soy. Yo soy. That means I am. Yo soy. When we conjugate it with tú, the pronoun tú, it becomes tú eres. Eres. When we conjugate it with usted, él, or ella, the form is es. Usted es, él es, ella es. When we conjugate ser with we, or nosotros, nosotras, the form is somos. Nosotros somos, nosotras somos. That means we are. And when we conjugate it with ellos, ellas, or ustedes, the form becomes son. Ellos son, ellas son, ustedes son. Now keep in mind that these subject pronouns stand for actual nouns. We use them as a tool to help us learn how to conjugate verbs. But when we're actually using the real nouns, we can think of, oh, what subject pronoun would I use? And that tells us what form of the verb to use. So if I were talking about Javier and Ana, and I wanted to say Javier and Ana are my friends, my first thing to think about if I'm trying to figure out what form of ser to use would be to think about what pronoun I could use to substitute for Javier and Ana. Now I'm talking about them. So am I going to use first person, second person, or third person? First person is when I'm talking about myself. Second person is when I'm talking directly to somebody. Third person is when I'm talking about someone. So I'm talking about Javier and Ana. That means I'm going to use a third person pronoun to talk about them. Our third person pronouns, if you remember from the other video, are él, ella, ellos, and ellas. Okay? So which one of those is the best choice to substitute for Javier and Ana? Well, since it's a boy and a girl, that's plural, and there's a boy there, so we have to choose ellos. I could say, they are my friends. They are my friends. Ellos. So if it's ellos, then the form of ser is going to be son. Ellos son mis amigos. They are my friends. So if you can remember these forms of ser and which pronouns go with which forms, you will be able to conjugate ser according to any subject. Now the reason I put yo, tú, and nosotros and nosotras in parentheses is because many times in Spanish, people will not use those pronouns. They'll just use the verb. In English, we would never do that, even though, we'll go over here, even though am is the only form used with the word I, we would never say, am a teacher. We would say, I am a teacher. We would always include I. But in Spanish, it's different. In Spanish, they just won't say that yo. They'll just say, soy maestra. I am a teacher. Soy profesora. Okay? Eres estudiante. Instead of saying, tú eres estudiante, they'll just say, eres estudiante, and they'll just drop that pronoun. This is common. I mean, this is more common than using the pronoun. And same thing with nosotros and nosotras. They'll just say somos. And the reason that they feel comfortable doing this is because these forms of ser indicate the subject. Eres is the only form used with tú, so you know you're talking directly to someone, a familiar you. Soy is the only form used with yo, so you know you're talking about I. So soy really means I am, just by itself. Eres means you are, just by itself. Somos really means we are. It doesn't have to have the pronoun with it. And much of the time, most of the time, in Spanish, you will hear that they just drop the pronoun. So be ready for that, and be ready to hear just somos. Somos means we are. Now with es and son, it's more common to include the pronoun because there are different pronouns, obviously, that could be used with that. It could mean you formal. It could mean he or she, and the same thing with son. It could be they, all girls, or they, all boys, or boys and girls, or y'all, plural. If you can remember these forms of ser and the pronouns that go with them, you will have we've made a lot of progress toward being able to apply this in talking about the different ways of existence in Spanish that are used with the verb ser.